Hey, what is up guys? It's Lewpac here, back with another Albion Online video, and it is time for our monthly Meta Snapshot video. In the Meta Snapshot, we take a close look at what is happening in the world of Albion when it comes to the 5v5 meta. In the background, you'll see a couple of banger GVGs that took place this month to keep you entertained, and I'll generally overlay some text informing you what the builds are as I talk about them. I don't often list every single piece of equipment because it's very subjective in a lot of the slots, but I'll talk about the normal builds and some potential changes you can make. So without further ado, let's get on with May's Meta Snapshot. Starting as always with the tanks of Albion Online then, the big news was in fact in the last combat balance patch. The Maces got a brand new Q ability called Sacred Ground, which drops an AoE silence area on the floor, which silences any players that are standing in it until they leave. Now, this actually had a longer uptime than it did cooldown, so it was basically you could have it infinitely on a choke point, and as predicted, it was super strong when it came to the GVGs, especially Resource 1, the map with the choke points. Not so effective on the more open maps like Resource 2 or Farm, but super horrible to push through a choke against Sacred Ground. It is getting a slight nerf in the upcoming balance changes for the next Oberon patch, but it is still a fairly potent ability. And honestly, the tanks right now in Albion Online are 50-50 split between Ironclads and Heavy Maces. These are by far the two most represented tank classes, but honestly there's not too much between them. Ironclads are good for that kind of kidnap and delete isolation kind of play. Maces more for that lockdown, sustained pressure, purging buffs and just winning the momentum fight. I have in fact seen a couple of teams bringing the Camlan Mace to GVG. That new improved Vendetta ability will pull all the enemies together in a clump and stun them briefly, allowing some really good AoE dump. Now, Vendetta does have quite a long cooldown, but I've definitely seen it used to some effect. I'd love to try it out myself as well and see what happens. Hammers still don't really seem to be doing a lot. Now, I did debut a cool pole hammer build in Hellgates, and I have took it to a bunch of scrims to test it, and it did actually seem to be super effective when you can land the combos with it. The problem is the E ability on the pole hammer is kind of janky and difficult to hit sometimes because of the animation on it, so it's fairly easy to dodge as well. Not only that, whenever there's a different vertical height involved, like in the map you see now up and down the choke points, anytime you're trying to use the ability from one height to another, up or down the choke for example, it really is janky to hit. Other gear for tanks then, in the top tier of tanking, Judicator Armour still seems the most popular choice with that force field, but Guardian Armour is a close second and definitely a good budget option. In the Helm slots, most are using the Bop Helm on the cloth or a Demon Helm for silencing. There was a recent nerf to silences, however, as now players can use their potions during a silence effect, but it shouldn't shut down Demon Helms and silences in general too much, because you could still find someone whose potion's on cooldown if you've seen them use their potion recently, or even someone who's not using a defensive potion, for example a healer using an energy potion, or a crossbow using poison potions. Boots, the Fiend Sandal swap seems to be really good. Still, people are spamming that. I've even seen some of the frontline bruisers using it as well. There is other options, but Fiend Sandals seem to be the go-to. Shout out as well to the Money Guild team, who debuted a double tank setup this month as well. And I've seen it replicated in a lot of Hellgates too. It's utilizing both an Ironclad and a Mace. Now, I believe the Mace uses a Stalker hood to at least give armor pierce on kill targets, but this phenomenal amount of CC, coupled with two direct damage dealers with the output potential to get kills just with two of them, It's actually been super effective, and a lot of people are struggling to fight against it, so it's really cool to see something new being used. On to healers then, and right now we are still seeing the Druidic Nature Staff be the GVG staff of choice. Its full complement of instant cast uninterruptible abilities definitely helps against the tanks because the Ironclad has a lot of disruption, and the Mace can even interrupt with the snare charge and silence you mid-cast if you're playing Holy. So it makes sense that the Nature is just really good on the move and under pressure from tanks. It gives the healer a lot of space and lets them pre-hot their players as well, so if the tank and the bruisers want to go in deep or people want to man up, as long as your pre-hots are in place, you're in a good position with a Nature. Some Holy is still getting played. Either the Fallen or the Redemption staff seem to be the staff of choice. Some people are even running the Great Holy in 5v5 as a super cheap Holy option, but I wouldn't recommend it in high level GVGs. That's more for Royals GVGs or Hellgates we're seeing the Great Holy. Gear wise, the standard Nature build of Graveguard Helm and Druid Robe is also being complemented with the Graveguard boots now. People seem to be loving the Battle Frenzy ability, that 5-second speed boost that makes you immune to all movement impairing effects is really good for not getting snared by maces or stopped by wind walls, things like that. Another safer option obviously is still the Blink boots. A few people have been experimenting with Night boots as well as an extra save for the players, but really the Night boots have got a longish cooldown coupled with the fact that you can't really use them as an escape unless you've got somebody to escape to, when generally the healer's in the back anyway. Holy healers generally play it a little bit safer with a Cleric Robe and Blink shoes, and for their head slot they don't generally go for the Graveguard. They're looking for a more utility headpiece, either a Mercenary Hood for cleansing or a Knight's Helm for displacement immunity, maybe even a Guardian Helm for that emergency heal and removing dots like the Infernal Staff, but it's completely situational based on what you're facing when it comes to being a healer. Right now though, in terms of the top tier meta, I would definitely say Nature is edging out Holy, but both are still seeing play. Onto the melee DPS then, and the old Soldier's Heron build that we talked about last month is still super popular and very represented in the GVG meta. If you want to know the exact build for that, check out last month's video. The Halberd Soldier Armour as well, coupled with a Stalker's Hood for Mortal Agony, and then some Blink shoes, that's being played a fair bit. But what's really cool is I've seen both Trinity Spear and Glaives being played in GVGs. Now the Glaive with that flick ability, or the Trinity Spear with that Space Jam dunk, these are being played as an auto attack fighter using Spirit Spear, Forest of Spears or Deflect on the W as appropriate. And these guys are running a Stalker Hood. Some people are running Soldier's Armor with the Trinity Spear. Some people are running a Hunter's Jacket. Some people are running something like a Hellion Jacket for the AoE heal. There's a lot of different options out there. Honestly, my favorite is probably the Hunter's Jacket because the auto attack speed coupled with the auto attack speed on the E is phenomenally fast and super damage. But spears, especially auto attack spears, not the Heron Spear build because it relies on lunging stabs instead of Spirit Spear, but the auto attack spear builds and auto attack builds in general are still super vulnerable to things like Forceful Swing on an Ironclad, which completely shuts down auto attacks. Bows have a similar problem. That said, you know, a lot of people are saying that if an Ironclad is running Forceful Swing, he's losing Stun Run, and that's a good thing for the team facing them. Swords and daggers aren't really seeing a lot of top tier play still at the moment. Some people have been doing a similar bruiser build with broadsword, soldier armor and mortal agony Stalker Hood, trying to delete people or use it as the interrupt if you're facing a holy healer. That said, swords are going to get a new parry ability which renders them invulnerable and reflects all damage for 0.8 seconds. It seems like a very interesting ability. We'll have to wait and see though how it plays out and if it puts swords into the top tier meta, but right now I would say swords and daggers are definitely lagging behind axes and spears right now in terms of melee DPS in 5v5s. So finally we're going to talk about the range DPS then, and it's still pretty split between the ranged DPS, but bows seem to be being played an awful lot in GVGs right now. Now, the bow trick where you would activate Enchanted Quiver on a normal bow, then switch to a Whispering Bow, turn on Ghastly Arrows and delete somebody, that trick's no longer available. That has been patched out. But again, the normal bow and the Whispering Bow are featuring quite heavily in GVGs, usually coupled with Mage Armour for that purging shield, and doing a phenomenal amount of damage if left unchecked. So do respect these bow players and the amount of damage they can put out, and make sure you do try and control them with your tanks if you see them. Now, I'm seeing the crossbow, even post nerf, still played a lot. Both heavy crossbow and light crossbow are being played. I would say light crossbow is being represented more and is definitely still a top tier weapon, as is the infernal staff that we're still seeing played. So those would be the three top ones. I am seeing the Great Curse. We talked about Great Curse last month, and honestly, I am seeing a fair few of them in GVGs, but they're still not quite as frequent as the other three. I think Great Curse is still a great weapon, particularly against nature. I'm surprised, honestly, that people aren't bringing Arcane anymore. As I said last month, it seems to have disappeared completely, even with a few recent buffs to some of the abilities, like the Great Arcane E. It just hasn't found its place, which I'm super surprised, because a low cooldown AoE purge in a nature soldier's armor heavy meta seems like a no-brainer. But I guess the utility of other classes or the damage output of other classes seems to swing the balance in their favor. But a good one-hand arcane with the Scholar's Robe can put out so much damage too, it's insane. Same with Frosts then. The Great Frost I consider a bit of an underrated weapon. Some teams are using it to effect, but it's still not being as heavily represented as fire crossbows and bows. The Frost is getting a new AoE Q ability though coming soon, so maybe that will change, particularly on the choke point maps. But the safe option right now is definitely the traditional build. So the Infernal Staff is generally built with a Royal Hood, Druid Robe and Blink Sandals, and that Morgana's Cape for super fast casting once you get your E off. The crossbows have got a more utility head and chest. Some are using Mercenary Hood for the cleanse, some are using Fiend's Cowl for the purge. I've seen Knight's Helms, I've seen Guardian's Helms. It's one of the most versatile head slots on the crossbow, which is part of why crossbow is so popular, because the fire mages absolutely have to run the Royal Hood, otherwise they hit energy issues very, very quickly. The crossbow isn't so energy hungry, so to speak, so this allows players to have a bit more freedom in their builds. Curses as well can have this freedom due to not being energy hungry and energetic passive on both of these weapons, weaving in enough auto attacks to keep your energy up. Maybe even thinking about a Limhurst Cape or something like that for longer fights, but they really can self-sustain a lot easier than a Fire or Frost can. So looking onwards to next month's Meta Snapshot, we do have a balance patch going in soonish, I believe. There's NDA notes up on the forums. I'll probably give my own video soon about those notes and what I think about them. There's some really interesting changes though that could definitely shake up the meta. Right now, I still think it's in a good place, but I feel that we're actually a little bit less diverse in the meta as we were maybe a month or two ago, and I feel that that's because a lot of the free-to-play players that have just joined the game are just copying top-tier builds because they don't want to risk grinding something early on that isn't known to be effective. Also, I think people are sort of realizing out of the previous very diverse meta, there's enough data now and enough raw examples and fights taking place that people actually know what does have a little bit of edge and what counters what in the current meta. I'm really surprised that we haven't seen Guardian Helms completely stop the use of Infernal Staffs. I've spoke to a few top GVGers though, and they feel that that's because taking the Guardian Helm to counter the Infernal is all well and good, but who wears the Guardian Helm? You know, your bruisers need Mortal Agony to push through kill pressure. Your tanks honestly want something to help get kills, whether it's a bot helm or a demon helm, shut down targets, as that's their job, and they get the most crowd control benefit from it. And then your backliners are looking for cleanses, purges, or displacement immunity against ironclads, and you honestly can't really afford to give those up just to remove the infernal. So it didn't quite have the effect that I thought it would. I feel that still crossbows or curses can probably get away with running the Guardian Helm, maybe even the tank, but it does make it harder for the tank to secure those kills for the team when he doesn't have an extra form of control on the helmet slot. Let me know your thoughts on the current meta and what you think is going to be upcoming for next month. Let me know if you've got any cool new builds you've been playing that you want me to look at that I haven't covered in the meta. As always, guys, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And a special shout out to all the supporters on Patreon, directly supporting the YouTube channel. If you want to become a supporter, you can check out the link in the comments below. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.